Let me say this slowly. Arsenal are on the edge of winning the Premier League. They are still alive in cup competitions. They could actually pull off a treble this season. And somehow, people are still saying this team needs something more. You know what? They might actually be right. The problem nobody wants to talk about. Look, Arsenal have been brilliant this season. The structure is there. The pressing is relentless. Arteta has built something really special at the Emirates. But if you sit down and watch the wingers closely, something feels a little off. Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, Noni Madueke, Leandro Trossard, 4 wide players, and between them, just 14 Premier League goals this season. Combined, all 4 of them together. That number hurts a little when you say it out loud, doesn't it? Now, before people come at me, yes, Arsenal are still winning. Yes, the system works. Yes, the goals are coming from other areas. But there is a difference between a team that wins games and a team that has someone who can single-handedly destroy you on a Tuesday night in a knockout game. Arsenal have the former, they are missing the latter. So the question the whole fan base is quietly asking is, who is that guy? Who is the one that changes games on his own? Enter Kvaratskhelia, the dream target. Here is where it gets exciting. Reports this week dropped that Arsenal are genuinely looking into a move for Kvaratskhelia. Yes, that Kvaratskhelia, the guy who tortured defences at Napoli, won Serie A, then moved to PSG, where he has continued being absolutely unplayable. Think about it. 35 goal contributions in 69 games for PSG. He won the Champions League. He does things with the ball that make defenders look like they are standing still. He is electric, unpredictable, and he thrives under pressure. Everything Arsenal's wide areas are missing right now. And apparently the people around Kvaratskhelia are open to hearing what Arsenal have to say. That part is actually huge. When a player of that level is willing to listen, you have to take that seriously. But here is the cold part of the story. PSG are not playing along. Fabrizio Romano kills the hype. You knew there had to be a catch, right? Fabrizio Romano, the man who has never got a transfer story wrong in his life, basically shut this whole thing down in a few sentences. His words were clear. PSG have absolutely no intention of opening talks over Kvaratskhelia this summer. None. They love the guy. They value him. He still has 3 years left on his contract, and because PSG are owned by Qatari money, they are not sitting there desperate to cash in. Romano made it very plain. Nothing concrete exists between Arsenal and PSG on this one. Nothing. Not even the early conversations that clubs normally have before a deal comes together. So yes, Arsenal are interested. Yes, the players' people might be open, but if the club holding his contract is not willing to talk, you are going nowhere fast. That is just the reality. Does that mean Arsenal fans should give up on the dream? Not exactly, but it does mean the Kvaratskhelia move, at least this summer, looks more like a long shot than a done deal. Arsenal's transfer style, patience is their superpower. Here is something worth remembering about how Arsenal actually operate in the market. They are not a club that panics. They are not a club that throws money at a problem just because a journalist writes something. They wait. Think about what happened with Viktor Gyökeres. Arsenal needed a striker for years. Fans were frustrated. Season after season went by without the big number 9 arriving. People were asking questions, doubting the club's ambition. And then last summer, Gyökeres rocked up at the Emirates, and suddenly everything made sense. That is the Arsenal way under this ownership group. They identify the right player, they wait for the right moment, and when the door opens, they walk through it. So when it comes to Kvaratskhelia, maybe this summer is just the research phase. Maybe Arsenal are letting PSG know they are interested without actually pushing. Maybe the real move comes later when the contract situation shifts, or when PSG decide they want to reshape their squad. Wide attacking players are definitely a priority for Arsenal this summer though. They have not signed a genuine left winger since Trossard joined back in January 2023. That is over 2 years. Something is coming, the question is just who. But wait, Arsenal may have already solved this problem, okay. Here is the part of the story that most people slept on. And honestly, this might be the biggest news of all. Arsenal have already secured the signing of Edwin Quintero, a 16-year-old winger from Ecuador who plays for Independiente del Valle. Him and his twin brother Holger are both heading to the Emirates, with the move confirmed to happen in the summer of 2027 when Edwin turns 18. Now, before you scroll past this, hear me out. This kid is being compared directly to Kvaratskhelia, not by random fans on Twitter, by people who actually scout players for a living. Football analyst and Como scout Ben Mattinson has watched this boy closely and described him as someone who constantly uses skill to unsettle defenders, who makes smart decisions in tight spaces, and who can operate effectively as a winger or as a number 10. At the Under-17 CONMEBOL Championships, one of the most competitive youth tournaments in South America, Edwin scored twice in 5 games and averaged 5.7 successful dribbles per match. For context, that dribble number is elite for a player at any age. At 16, it is genuinely remarkable. So while Arsenal are out here trying to sign the actual Kvaratskhelia, they may have already secured a player who could become the next version of him. That is not a bad backup plan. That is actually incredible planning. Does Kvaratskhelia even fit what Arteta wants? This is a question worth asking properly, because signing a superstar and fitting a superstar into your system are two very different things. Arteta runs a specific disciplined structure. His wide players are expected to press, track back, work hard defensively, and also contribute going forward. It is not a system built for a maverick who does whatever he wants. You have to be committed to the collective. Kvaratskhelia can do all of that. He is not just a dribbler. He works hard, he presses, he understands positional football. His time at Napoli under Luciano Spalletti, a manager who also demands incredible tactical discipline, showed he can operate inside a system while still being unpredictable and creative. So yes, on paper, he fits. He would be a massive upgrade on what Arsenal currently have in those wide positions. He could be the player that turns a very good Arsenal team into a truly frightening one. The risk, though, is the price. PSG will not sell cheap. We are talking about a Champions League winner in his prime, with years left on his deal, at a club with unlimited resources. If Arsenal want him, they will probably have to break their transfer record. And even then, PSG might just say no. Is he worth it? Absolutely. Is it realistic this summer? Probably not. The bigger picture are Arsenal blocking their own future. Here is the real dilemma, though. And I want to ask you this directly. If Arsenal spend £100 million or more on Kvaratskhelia, what happens to Edwin Quintero when he arrives in 2027? What happens to Martinelli? What happens to Madueke? There is a real risk that chasing the big name now could block the development of players who are already in the building or on their way. Arsenal have shown they are good at developing young talent. Saka himself is proof of that. If they have already identified Quintero as a generational talent, does it make sense to spend huge money on a position they may have already sorted for the future? This is the balancing act every big club faces. Short-term glory versus long-term planning. And Arsenal, to their credit, have usually managed to do both. But it gets harder when the price tags get this big. So what happens next? Honestly, I think Arsenal will make a move for a winger this summer, but it probably will not be Kvaratskhelia. PSG are too difficult to deal with. The price would be astronomical, and Romano has already told us the door is closed for now. More likely, Arsenal find a slightly more realistic target, someone dynamic, someone young, someone who fits the system, while keeping Edwin Quintero as the long-term bet on the future. And maybe in a year or two, when Kvaratskelia's contract situation gets trickier, or when PSG decide to rebuild again, that is when Arsenal make their real move. In the meantime, they have a league title to win and a treble to chase. Let me ask you something. Do you think Arsenal genuinely need Kvaratskhelia to become champions? Or are they already good enough without him? And what about Edwin Quintero? Had you even heard of him before this week? Because if Arsenal have really signed the next version of Kvaratskhelia at 16 years old, that is one of the quietest but smartest pieces of business they have ever done. Drop your thoughts. This is exactly the kind of transfer debate that makes following football so addictive.